If you have clicked on this video, I can only believe you've done so because you are contemplating giving up on music. You've had enough and you've seen the title of this video and thought, this is something that I want to do, so let me see what this guy has to say. Now, this is a video that I wish was more common and a mindset that I've struggled with myself, so this is my past experiences and thoughts as to why you should not give up on music. Hey, I'm Theo. I've been studying music now for 16 years and I'm currently 20 years old. I was lucky enough to have a mother who forced me to take up instruments as a child, and it paid off big time when I found my own love for music and decided that I wanted to do it for a full-time job. My journey hasn't been a smooth sailing one though, in terms of the instruments I was playing not being the instrument that I ultimately wanted to play, and the skills that I gathered as a child were skills that I regrettably took for granted and forgot as time went on. I did go to a music sixth form and I currently attend music university where I solely play electric bass guitar, which is the instrument that I do want to be playing as I pursue my dream of being a session musician. Countless times throughout my journey I have faced drawbacks, bad rehearsals, bad sessions and a fear of judgment to the point where I will actively avoid playing in front of people so as not to lessen their opinion of me and my bass playing. The biggest example of this being an impromptu jam with Ollie Howe, the jazz pianist and keyboard player who hosted a masterclass at my university whilst I was in first year. My head teacher called me up on stage to play with him, and the first guy up before me absolutely nailed it. He had studied jazz for years, whereas I had never listened to it or never wanted to learn how to play it. This turned into a pretty abysmal situation when the jam turned into a jazz playthrough where I, very rightly so, was put in my place for even attempting it in front of the older years. Later that day, there was a jam night hosted by my university, which I attended to watch one song before heading back to my flat, calling my mum and telling her I was dropping out whilst crying. That event is now over a year old, and since then there have definitely been more times that I can't currently recall where I did not play to the standard that I hold myself to, and there have definitely been more phone calls to my parents talking about dropping out and that I was quitting music. Years ago now, when I was in secondary school, I was very competitive. I had been doing music my whole life, why should I not be the best at it? And that completely skewed something that should have been fun. I was in my own band at this point, at 14 years old, releasing original music and creating my own solo music too, which I self-produced and released. I should mention, neither of these bands were any good, but at that point I felt like I was incredible. I mentioned to my parents that I wanted to become a music producer and go to a music sixth form, which was not the easiest of tasks to get them to agree to, but with a lot of persuading, I did make it work. They were not so easy to drop their concern though, and very rightly told me that if it is something that I want to do, then I should not come home without top marks. They would also mention to me that if I was not practicing, then there would be somebody else out there practicing and getting better than me, creating an imaginary competition, as if we were going for the same jobs in the future. As true as what they were saying is, I'm definitely going for some of the same jobs as some of my friends and colleagues. It isn't as competitive as it was made out to be, and it turned music into something that I was doing for the fun of it, into something that I was doing for the fear of somebody getting better than me at. By the time I got to university, I was scared. I did not want to meet my match in terms of musical skill or bass playing, and I did not allow myself to play bass in front of anybody in case they judged me and thought I did not belong at the university. When I saw the level of quality of musicianship and individual skill at their own instruments, it did feel like I didn't belong on the same course as them because of how good they were, and I was insecure. I suffered immensely with Imposter Syndrome, and as I said earlier, would frequently call my family to let them know that I played my final notes on bass and was quitting music school. At the start of my second year, my imposter syndrome was so bad that I'd had enough. I made a task of going and talking to the tutors at my university who specifically played bass and got their takes on dealing with imposter syndrome and whether they'd ever thought about quitting music. Now, these tutors are all professional musicians. They make their living through music and work at the university to share their experience, and so I trust that these bass players are top quality purely from the bands that I know that they work with or worked with, and just from watching them play. However, when I asked these tutors whether they had experienced imposter syndrome individually, each one of them said yes and shared their past experiences of how they would stink up a room in uni, or they would overthink and believe they were playing out of tune, when in reality, they weren't. Each one of them also said that this will never go away. No matter how long you've been playing for, no matter how long you practice for each day, the fear of not being good enough will linger. Red Shull mentions in one of his videos how he compares himself to other guitar players a lot, and this had him questioning his own stance on whether or not to hang up the guitar. And I personally believe Red Shull to be a phenomenal guitar player. My main takeaway from talking to my tutors and reflecting on my years in music was to just stop comparing yourself to others. Stop being so competitive and just enjoy playing and creating music with your friends. Now, early in 2023, I adopted the mindset of nobody being better than anybody else. And obviously this is flawed. I teach people how to play bass, and if I wasn't better than them, why would I be teaching them? What I mean by nobody being better than anybody else is simply that the only thing dividing us is experience. What did you experience growing up musically? What did you practice? How often did you practice? When did you start gigging? How long have you been a producer for? What type of sounds do you like? What type of sounds do you not like? Music is so subjective, and to compare music, to compare art, it makes no sense. This thing that is supposed to be fun and bring joy into your life, you're letting it control you negatively and is stopping you from expressing yourself because you may be scared to hit a wrong note. Now, not everybody was raised the same. Not everybody listens to or enjoys music the same. If you want to play music one way and it's different to the way the person stood next to you does it, that does not matter, because if we all enjoyed art the same way, then we would not have so many different genres of music or techniques of which to play the instrument that you wish to play. I didn't quit music when I really wanted to, and because of that, I got to quit my day job. I have some incredible gigs lined up that a younger me would be proud of, and me now can't even believe how far I've come. Wherever you are on your musical journey, it is going to be different to every single person. But that does not mean that you are not as good at what you do, or that what you create is not valid. I am no longer worried about being the greatest, because nobody is the greatest. We all have personal preferences that help us contribute to music in our own unique way. This does not mean that I'm no longer scared. Like my tutor said, this will never go away, but that doesn't mean it's there 24/7. We have our moments where we question our own ability, but you must remember why you started in the first place, and think about whether your life will be as fulfilling without music there. Figure out what you want from music. Do you want to be a session musician? Do you want to go to jam nights and jazz bars and get up and play there? Do you want to be in a band and create original music? Do you want to be a producer? Or do you just want to play for the fun of it? We all want different things at different times, and once you know what you want, it's easy to work towards it. It'll be a long process with countless drawbacks, but that means it'll be even more fulfilling once you learn that crazy bass line that you've always wanted to do, or hit that incredible solo live. Bad sessions and practices do not define you. I know it's hard to believe because I struggle to believe it from time to time too, but look around at what you're doing, where you've came from, and realize that with music you are forever learning. You cannot complete music, you just have to chase fulfillment.